How would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have Chris, which is speaker and a best-selling author. So Chris, tell us, what are the 5 steps to make your first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Well, I guess I'll tell you what I did and what I think maybe I've seen some other people do. And there's maybe not one answer here, but this is the answer that fits for me. So the first thing is to envision the end. So you want to make a million, but what does that mean? I mean, are you trying to like buy a yacht? Are you trying to be secure in your life? Like what does the end actually look like? And that's connected to manifesting your destiny. That could be connected to appreciative inquiry, meaning, you have to really discover what you want and dream about how it's going to go. You got to really design it. You've got to and put things in place for it to really happen. But I find that people really fail to think about the end. They're so worried about the idea. They're so worried about the beginning process that they don't have any idea about what that would look like. Because if you imagine yourself living in a villa in Italy, you're not starting a brand new business in Pittsburgh. I mean, maybe you should be moved to Italy to begin with, right? So thinking about the end is, I think, probably the most important. The second is to decide on the path. So are you solving a problem? Do you have a brand new idea? Is that the kind of millionaire you are? Or are you buying an existing business and improving it? Are you just a come in and improve something that already exists? Building the better mousetrap, or are you brand new idea person? I would say most millionaires are actually improving somebody else's thing, by the way. There's very few people who are building a brand new thing, right? Very few Steve Jobs out there in the world. So kind of keep that in mind. Third step is to master marketing. You got to figure out how you're going to market, your messaging, your positioning, your audience, whether or not you have any money to spend on marketing. Because if you have no money, then how can you get really, really smart about getting your message out to the right people if you have little to no money? I'll tell you, my first business, we figured out we could fax people. This is now totally illegal, but back in the day, it was legal to do. We would fax them advertisements every time that they put a job posting in the newspaper. And that cost me a penny for a fax, right? And so I could send thousands and thousands of advertisements to the exact people who wanted my service for a penny a shot. That's how I built my first million. It then became illegal and I had to figure out how to do something different. But at the time, it was a very cheap, easy, great way to find people. So marketing is everything. And you can spend a lot of money doing it too. There's great ways to do it there, but that's great. Number four is to create the right culture for your organization. If it's just you, you're a one woman or one man shop, then don't worry about it. But anybody else, employees will make or break you. So create an environment where you get great people who want to work there. You treat them great. They want to bring you ideas. They want you to succeed. That starts with you. I've seen businesses absolutely crumble that didn't need to because they had bad environments and bad employees. And then last but not least, probably everything you think you're going to do is totally wrong, and that's okay. So you want to experiment, you want to test, and you want to adapt. Especially early on, this is so, so important that you're going to think this is the right idea and you're going to experiment, you're going to test it and find out you were wrong and there was actually a better way of doing it. And the quicker you can do that, the faster you can do that, the better off you are and the quicker you'll get to that first million.
Well, Chris, this is really powerful, and I love number one, the marketing strategy for your business is spectacular. And yeah, you shared something really powerful, which is, yeah, you have to get really good at marketing. However, if you can find a strategy cost effective, when I had my first business, we were publishing in Gumtree, which is a free website, and all our leads for our property were coming from from there, and it was literally free, and we have a lot of leads. I later on I understand that the name of that was marketing. I didn't even knew what marketing was starting a business.
Right.
And you have this creative idea. So let's talk a little bit more about how you came with this idea, um, uh, about the vaccine, yeah, regarding after becoming legal, whatever. But at the time, because that's also about the entrepreneur, it's about having to find the spot when no one is doing, and apply it. So how this idea came to you?
Well, it was
I
sort
think it's
of,
brilliant, by the way. I think it's spectacular.
yeah, I mean, it was really thinking about, okay, well, who's our easiest client to close? There was the HR managers. If we could get a hold of the HR managers, now this was a long, long time ago. This is 25 years ago or something. When I started the business, it was, hey, you should use our service. And they had to think, oh, that's a good idea. As our business progressed, it changed to you should use our service and not someone else's service. The market became more commoditized over time. So we were in a really great spot of like, hey, did you know you can do this thing? It's very inexpensive. You can do this thing and you can make sure your employees are not criminals or are going to steal from you or whatever. And so we thought, well, if we can just get a hold of them, we know they'll buy at a high percentage. Great. So how do we get a hold of them? Well, we can start calling them. That's one way. Can send them letters. That's another way. I mean, the internet was just kind of getting going. We can send them emails, but we don't really have their emails. I mean, so sort of thing. And it just dawned on me like, well, I was thinking about the process. So if somebody wants to hire someone, what do they do? Well, they put an ad in the newspaper. This is before Indeed or, Monster and all these other systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I looked in the newspaper and I was looking at the ads just to try to think, what can I understand about my potential client? And I kept seeing the fax number and I go, wait a minute. They're giving us their contact information, right? They're literally putting it out there in the public for free. And so I thought, well, what would happen if I sent an advertisement there? Now, a good 5% of all the people I sent them to called us and were angry and were not happy, right? The moment we sent them out, the first 5 minutes was, hey, they would say all kinds of mean things. 5% were not happy. You wasted my paper. You wasted my ink. Don't ever send me a fax again, blah, blah, blah. And then about 10 minutes after that, I started getting hey, this is interesting. Then I
Wow.
got another 10, I get 10% were like, yeah, I'd like to talk to you. Uh, a good 70% ignored us. And then the other small bit of percent that's left would call us later on, months later, a year later, 5 years
Wow.
later, right? They would
Wow.
they would take that ad and they would put it in a file and they would save it. And then like one day they had to hire again, they'd open it up and hey, I got this fax 5 years ago, right? So
Wow.
it was really interesting how that worked. But I just was thinking through the psychology, trying to put myself in the shoes of my buyer. What was their process? How did they do what they needed to do? And then that naturally gave me the idea, well, how do I insert myself into that process?
So, Chris, you only send one fax, or you send multiple? I'm asking you this question because sometimes this 5% that they call you, they really can go into your head,
Yeah.
and they really can, and it's only 5%, right? Um, they can even, looking to you as a person. You start to build stories about yourself that are not even real
Yeah.
because of what these people told you, which is the view what happened, which have nothing to do. We're just trying to make money and do a business, and again was legal and valid to do it. So, did these people manage to get into your head? Did it affect you emotionally somehow? How you let go, whatever they told you? Because when you start in a business, sometimes you have an emotional attachment to the business. It's like a kid.
Yeah.
Somebody talk to you bad about the kid, it's affecting you emotionally. So how
Yeah.
you
I mean,
how you deal with this, and And did you send more facts, or you just send one, and because these people told you this, you decided not to do it again?
Well, so if they called us and said, "Don't ever do it again," we kept a list of their numbers and we did never do it again, and
Absolutely.
we would
But
exclude their
the point.
numbers from ever getting another app. So we tried to be respectful of that if they didn't want to hear from us again, and we only would send one fax if they had an advertisement. We didn't keep hitting them and keep bothering them. We just sent
100%,
one
yeah.
time.
If they have an advertising.
Right. And now they may have, if they did another advertisement for a new job the next week, then we might send another advertisement again. And we also would experiment with sending different prices.
Copies,
We would, right?
font
Different
size,
ads,
font
different
size.
prices, different packages. And what I found was
It
the
was black
cheapest
and white, Chris, or in color?
oh
Could you
yeah,
set us
black
a
and white.
color?
No,
All
all
black and
black and
white,
white.
no color, no?
No. And
Oh,
and I think today I would have made it look a lot different, but back then we were jamming every piece of information we could onto one page, right? With just the price being really big. And what I found was that the cheapest price sold the most, and the second one that sold the second highest amount of revenue for us was the most expensive package. So we would advertise to people, you can do all of our services. You can do everything, the full Monty for only $160, right? And the cheapest one was 40. And it was so funny that how many people would pick the most expensive. And we made so much more profit. That was way more profitable for us, right? The most expensive package.
yes,
But
yes.
all the ones in the middle, people kind of ignored.
Mhm. And then let that leads to our next question, Chris, because a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start into business, they sometimes they say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna sell cheap because that's gonna bring me more clients.
Sometimes, yeah.
However, the sometimes, because if we see the people and we see the buying behavior, look at the cars that everybody drives, look at the clothes that everybody's wearing, you see, and only maybe 20% of the population choose the items by price. The rest,
Mhm.
they always look how much value they can get for the money, and thus make a purchase based on that in value against the money. And I think that's why in my opinion, the most expensive one was a lot of success for you, because it was a lot of value. They see the client saw a lot of value there for 160. So why to pay 40 just for this little value when I can pay 160, and I can get everything.
Right.
And again, we if they are the other thing is that they need to have a problem, and the problem has to be important for them, right? If
Yeah.
car is not important for you, you will drive a cheapest car. If time is not important for you, you're gonna have a cheap watch. However, is the problem is important for you, you you're not gonna buy in price. You're gonna buy in as much value. So, Chris, what message do you have for entrepreneurs out there that they start in a business and then come into this mindset? Okay, I'm gonna sell my product cheap, so I'm gonna have more clients, which is actually put in very difficult position, because they only bring in for themselves at the beginning. That 20% of the population of the market where the product is not important for them, that's why they want to buy cheap. And still they have the problem, which is they don't have capacity, they don't have the marketing skill capacity to attract clients, and having a cheaper product is not going to solve this problem. They do need to learn how to about marketing and how to attract clients to the organization. Price is not gonna solve it. So what message do you
Well,
have for
it,
those?
it, yeah, it depends because in some markets and sometimes lowering the price could be what you want to do. If you are, I mean, let's just go very simple, right? If everybody buys their oranges from Tom, and they all like Tom and the oranges are good and you want to sell oranges, they don't know you, they don't like you as much, but your oranges don't taste any different. you don't have much to go on other than maybe trying to sell them for a little bit cheaper and find the people that
100%. Yeah.
right that need that. So that is a strategy that can work in certain circumstances. And this is sometimes will work well when you're trying to break into an industry, get some clients, get some momentum, sell a
Some
little bit
traction.
cheaper, right? And then all of a sudden now you have traction, you have some clients, and now you can kind of now sell on value. And selling on value is much better,
It's more
um,
profitable, Chris, right? Selling
and
on
more
value.
profitable. But you have to decide, maybe it's more profitable and I can sell 100 of these really expensive ones. But does that get me to my goal? If my goal is $1 million and I only sell 100 of these to these high-end people who can afford it, and I'm not going to get there. But if I sell the cheap one to 10,000 people, and that will get me to my goal, right, of having $1 million business or whatever. Like you have to kind of make that decision on which path you want to go and how fast you want to get there. And what your margins are and all of that. So what I found is for the average company who's maybe always kind of playing this game between price and value, they sort of sit somewhere in the middle. Some clients it's about price, some clients it's about value. It's always good to, if the client has told you, I can only pay this, I can only pay you, let's say it's $20,000 for your software program. Now, that is our maximum. That's my budget. I can only pay 20. But your software is 25 or it's 30. Find a way to give them what they want, right? How do I give you the software or whatever it is for $20,000? That's price one. And then you should give them two more options. So we have the basic price of 20, and for 25,000 you get these extra things and this extra service and these, right? And for 30,000 you get all of our support and all of our hopes and dreams, and we'll name our dog after you and like whatever crazy promises you want to make. What I find is that most people pick the middle price. Even though they told you 20,000 is all I can pay, they end up picking the 25 because they have a fear of loss and the value in just a little bit more money of what they get, all the extra things you put in there, extra in their mind, even though to you maybe it's not extra, means so much to them that they end up picking a little bit higher price, getting the value, and they feel like they won, that they were the smarter person in this transaction, that they got more out of you, even though you got more out of them than they said they wanted to pay.
Yeah. So, Chris, let's talk about the other point that you stretch, which is culture. From all the entrepreneurs that we have interviewed in this podcast with the founders, I ask them sometimes if you had to start all over again, what you would do different. And a lot of people have told me culture. They told me, Harry, if I knew how when I started my business, that is gonna be 10 times, 100 times harder than what I thought it was gonna be. And I will be more careful hiding these people, the people at the beginning, and
Mhm.
building a culture about the organization. I will be more careful about it. So tell us, Chris, why do you think that culture is important in the organizations, and is it really that important?
Yeah, so culture is the norms. It's how we get things done. It's how we meet. It's how we make decisions. And so if the owner of the business and the leaders are very clear about who we are, what we do, how we make decisions, what we don't do is just as important, like what things, activities do we not do as well, then it's so much easier for employees to decide, this is a place I want to be, or this is a place I don't want to be. So you're getting people to determine on their own, and they're not sticking around and making your life hell because they're the wrong fit. Two, they end up making much better decisions. If you're my boss and you've been very clear since day one about who we are and how we make decisions and what you value, and I understand that, and a client comes to me and you're off on vacation, I can't reach you, and I have to make that decision on my own, I can make a pretty big good guess about how you would advise me to move forward. And I'm probably going to get it right, or I'm going to be very close. As opposed to, I have no idea what you're thinking. You're so erratic. I have no idea what you would say, and I make the best decision I think is right. And you come back and you're like, "What were you doing? You cost me all this money. You cost us these problems." And that's the culture you created. So we have to train people, motivate people, empower people, and make them happy to be in your business. And as you said, the headaches go away, right? They just go away.
Yeah. So, Chris, now the other thing that I want to speak with you is about AI. How do you think the use of AI today? A lot of people say that we will replace jobs, that 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 well is like a kid. If you teach them good things, it's gonna do good things. If you teach them bad things, it's gonna do bad things, right? It's only learn. So what is your view in AI, and is it really AI is gonna improve the way that we do businesses?
Well, will it improve? Yes. Will those people who are using it do better? Yes. Will they be market leaders? Yes. Will it ultimately be better for society? Probably not. Will it potentially make it harder for us? And could we go extinct? And, could we have robot overlords? I mean, those are all possible things that could happen, right? Because everything that humans have ever created was for the benefit and at the command of that human being, right? This is the first thing we've ever created that can make its own ideas and do its own things and does not need us at some point to come up with its own ideas and decide what it wants to do. So this is a very different kind of creation. Um, I wouldn't call it sentient yet, but certainly the idea that something can have a mind of its own, right? The printing press, the plow, the computer, those things didn't have a mind of their own. They were all reliant on us telling it what to do, controlling it. But AI has this potential to step out of that, and that's going to be on the danger side, but on the business side right now, if you're not mastering it, if you're not using it, if you're not making it a strong part of your business, you're going to get left behind, just like the people who didn't want to do the internet, who didn't want to build a website, who didn't want to, have a cell phone. All those kinds of people got left behind as well in the marketplace.
Yeah. So let's talk now more about what is your view in technology. How do you think that the tech is gonna change the landscape of your business? And then can you share a little bit more about your book? What's the name? What it's about? Where can
Sure.
we find it?
Yeah. So I think what businesses are really going to have to figure out is how do we lean more on our humanity? How do we do the things that make us special that we can do as humans? What are those activities? And then how do we pinpoint that and make sure that we're doing them very, very well? And then allowing the AI to do the other junk that we don't need to be doing. Um, and then understanding that the innovation cycles are getting shorter and shorter. The amount of change that's happening is happening faster in shorter periods of time. And so, how does that impact you, your business? But more importantly, how does it impact your clients? And how can you show up in a way that helps them, right? So that you can continue to grow your business and make more money if you're solving that frustration for them, right? That things keep changing. You need to be the one to make things clearer, simpler, easier to understand, create confidence in them, and your business will do well. As for my book, The Power of Company Culture, it's in its second edition. You can get it anywhere.
Wow, I love
Uh,
the title.
yeah. Anywhere around the world, Amazon, Bolt, I don't know, whatever online bookstores in your country, the book should be there. It's translated in a bunch of languages for the summaries. I think it's in Vietnamese as well, and English, a
Wow.
few other languages. So, anyways, it's wherever you find books, you can find it. It's also there's an Audible version as well that I read. So if you would prefer to listen to it, it's out there as well.
Okay, so a little bit more in culture because this is, Chris, what we find out in the large organizations that they are, and that is embedded in the culture, how they communicate themselves effectively. We find this type of organization that they look like a Titanic, they are a big boat, and then when they are so rigid and so high and so well structured that when you say turn right, this big boat, this big Titanic have to turn right. Where there is another organizations where the culture is different, and rather than have a big Titanic, they have like 3,000 liter boats. And then what happens is when the first boat turn to right, all the little boats turn right faster. And those companies with these structures, they respond to change faster. You already shared with us that innovation times are getting shorter and shorter, so more and more and more companies have to respond to change faster and faster. And with the Titanic organization, where the culture in the organization is designed in a way that they don't interact among themselves, the departments, and there is no what we call it vertical, but also horizontal communication across all the board. We find out that then the companies are more slow responding to change. So, what is your view in empowering and and enrolling these big organizations that in order to respond to change fast, and like you said, innovation cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. How culture play a role in the speed that companies respond to change?
Well, when you're talking about large organizations, often innovation has to be pulled out of the organization, has to be literally put in a different building away from the culture because the culture essentially is trying to keep homeostasis. It's trying to keep what is happening going. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes, we want it can to continue to do the thing that we're doing really, really well. But if we look at other examples of Blockbuster and Kodak and those things, Blockbuster knew about streaming. Kodak
So
knew
then what
about
happened?
digital film, right? But their culture was trying to keep what they were currently doing going. And so they did not take their innovation group and pull it out of that culture and say, hey, go over here and create new cool things, experiment, right? Run tests, and let's see if we can't come up with the next big idea. And once they figured that out, then they can come back to senior leadership and decide whether or not we should take that leap. When you leave it to the average employees to all kind of like are working together, that they're thinking, well, we're doing really well right now. We've got a cash cow right now. Why would we change? Why would we do anything different? And that makes a lot of sense. If you look, Google has got Alphabet, right? So they literally have Google. I'm forgetting now the other. Is it Sky? Anyways, they've got a whole unit that's like outside of Google that they do all these crazy big things and try to solve these big giant problems for the world. And so their innovation is again pulled out of that general part. If you even look at what Google had gone through a little bit of some issues here when ChatGPT came out, that they were behind, right? And they were a little stuck. That their AI stuff was inside of Google and was a little stuck. They quickly realized that they were in that position and radically changed. They got Claude out there, and now they're back to being a market leader. We'll see if they figure out their ad problems and how they're going to continue to make money. But they realized that they were in danger of being one of those dinosaurs. Um, But that's typically how we deal with it, which is very different than if you have 10 people in your company, right? If you have 10 people in your company, then it's very, very different approach. And you can be thinking about innovation and doing experiments and thinking about change and the next big thing that's going to make you the next million feels natural. It feels normal to think that way. It doesn't when you're a $200 billion company and someone says, "Well, maybe we should stop doing this and we can go do something else that isn't tested yet." That seems like anarchy, you know?
So in your view, do you think that Google respond to change fast when ChatGPT came out, and this is because the culture and the structure they have, or do you think that because I think that they have some challenges, but at least they could respond, right?
Yeah, I do think that they changed very quickly. And they were maybe stuck a little bit in they wanted it to be perfect. And when we start a business and we're being innovative, we're not worried about perfection. It's just get something out there and then try to make it better the next time and get a little bit better and a little bit better. And Google was probably, you know, in my opinion, trying to make it perfect, trying to make it just right before they released it. And here comes ChatGPT that said, well, this is pretty awesome. Although the early ChatGPT was pretty crappy. I mean, it was cool what it would do, but it was also pretty crappy at the same time. But they got better very, very quickly because of all the attention, all the cash they got with the new users, the investors, right? They got excitement. And so, you know, Google had to catch up pretty quickly.
It got a huge valuation, ChatGPT really fast, right? One of the
Yeah.
biggest, largest valuations in history, shorter than, so they did create something amazing. So, how do you think? So, do you think that this is because of Google culture and the structure there? At least they managed to come with come up with innovation, respond to change fast. Because if things doesn't, if they don't move fast, they could be out of business. People can actually search. Most of the problems that the search engine that we go to a search engine, ChatGPT was solving few of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, they whether or not they had it right, they figured it out. And I give them credit for figuring it out, pivoting quickly and
And to
being able
respond
to
to change
adjust.
fast, which is
Yeah.
embedded in the culture of the organization. I think that a lot. So, what improvement, Chris, do you think generally in corporate America on the corporate can be done in improving culture so they can respond to change fast?
Well, if we can decentralize things, sometimes we get stuck having to go through too many layers of approvals and all of this. I mean, so sometimes we can make innovation uh, have less resistance to see the light of day, right? So if the culture is, let's try something, let's see, let's experiment, um, and then go and evaluate that and decide whether or not it's any good. Cultures like that do very, very well. Cultures that say, well, we don't have time for this, we have too many initiatives. You know, you need to get five other managers on board to decide that this is a something we really want to do. Right? Those organizations generally don't do as well. There are some examples of some companies that are much more systematic and take longer to change. IBM is actually they're a little bit more really strategic and they take longer to change. When they make the change, it's pretty big, right? But you know, so there are kind of pros and cons. But um, what can you do as an everyday leader to get your people to be willing to try things and willing to come back and say, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, this is what I learned, and getting in that habit because eventually you're going to find something really cool.
The whole organization can go into that happen. This is work. This is what it didn't work. But I think innovation is a big part of being in business today. You can we have to embrace innovation. Otherwise, I think that a lot of people are talking about, well, ChatGPT and AI. is gonna take our jobs. It's not that it's gonna take our jobs, but if we don't learn and embrace what these tools can do, it's not gonna be job for anybody. We're gonna go out of business. So we better learn and embrace it. And I agree with you, Chris. I love actually the idea to separate innovation from from the operation of the company itself, because it's a separate entity, have their own life. These people need to be alone, um, facing how they're gonna solve the next big problem, and they have to be like insulated, because um, what is going into organization, which is actually execution, system efficiency, and sell more, a completely different uh, completely different role, completely different system than what it goes in the innovation hub of that company. And once they come with something amazing, yeah, exactly, bring it to a leadership. So, Chris, if somebody's in love with our conversation, want to find out more about you, want to buy your book, how this process works, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at chrisdyer.com. You can also happy to accept your LinkedIn connection. I do a lot of content on TikTok for as long as that exists. We'll see if that goes away. Instagram Reels as well, and YouTube. So you can find me all those different places. My book should be available wherever you buy books online. If for some reason you can't find it in your country, please reach out to me. I can put you in touch with my publisher in the UK. They can usually get a book to anyone in the world somehow, some way. So and the Audible version is available as well. So that even if you can't get a physical copy delivered to you, you can always listen to me yap for, I don't know, 6 hours or something for the book.
Thank you so much, Chris. And for all of you following this broadcast, see you in our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneur like Chris break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.